I guess I can start, Bart. Good to see you again. Just thinking about the fact that there was the last practice with pads on Thursday when I was there in the stadium for all of 15 minutes, which I know isn't a great sample size, but it did sound like the intensity was kind of up, like the guys were cognizant of the fact this is our final practice in pads. We're going to give it a little bit extra. Did you kind of see that with the linemen, and maybe how did that kind of play out with the last practice?
Well, I felt like we needed to ratchet up the intensity with our group. We started certainly have to get good work when we do individual drills. Those are fairly limited as you get deeper and deeper into spring. So I felt like we needed to get some things done. And quite truthfully, I wasn't happy the way we started. So I kind of ratcheted up with our group, and then certainly carried over. I think there was some real positives watching the first group go. We moved the ball a little bit, and we had a few plays down there when we got down in the red area that we converted and did some really good things. So it was good to see that, and I think that kind of answered the bell. And then I continued to put pressure on some of the other younger guys too, because I think we felt like it was a long practice. It was a very demanding practice, as it should be, but I wanted to have a little bit extra juice with our guys, and certainly Coach has done some things where we do some crossover periods with defense, and not just the O-line, D-line, but some of the skill positions as well. And of course, anytime you're doing some crossover stuff and some drill work, that ratchets up the intensity also. And I felt like we needed to match what the defense was doing, and our guys responded. So yeah, it certainly should have been intense, and I'm glad that you thought it was.
I mean, when you're talking about that ratcheting up that intensity, I assume some of the veterans are kind of the guys leading that as well once you get in their ears. But were there any surprises in that regard, like any underclassmen maybe who were kind of stepping up and you were like, oh, okay, we're seeing something a little more out of him today?
Well, I think anytime you challenge a guy who's a true competitor, he'll rise to the occasion. And talk about the veteran guys. Yeah, I think Vidarian is a great practice player too. We all know what kind of a special talent he is, but one thing that makes him really a good leader and a good player is how hard he does practice, right? Guys like Doug Kramer practice really hard. And that's not just single out those two. There's a variety of those guys that do. But, I think a guy, Julian Pearl, I talked about him earlier in the spring, had a great spring. He had a rough day on whatever day that was. Saturday, I think, was the day before. And then Tuesday, Monday I challenged him, and we kind of got on. I know he wasn't happy with the way he performed. Then Tuesday he came out and had a really good day. So I think he's a prime example of a younger guy that kind of rises to the occasion there. And so it was good to see that. It was good to see those guys respond. It was good to see those guys bring some juice there on a Tuesday, and knowing that the game at that point was still probably a week away. They had a couple more practice days in there and some work lift days in there, but it was good to see him respond and kind of answer the call.
One more for you, if I could. You just mentioned the game. The way Coach Bielema described it to us was kind of the ones against the world is how he's looking at running it. For those younger guys, or the guys who I guess aren't the ones necessarily, what do you see this as? What kind of opportunity do you see this as for them this spring game?
Well, it's an opportunity to go out and compete against the best defensive players that we feel we have at this time, you're going to get an opportunity to get quite a few more reps than you would at a traditional practice, right? I mean, it's going to be at a game flow, and typically you're in that 60, 70, 80 play range when you're playing a full game, and so there's going to be a lot of opportunity to show kind of how they've progressed over the spring, opportunity how they can really compete against maybe our best defensive front, and I think that's really a neat opportunity for them. It's certainly an opportunity that I'm excited to see how they respond to, and something that they've earned to do, earned the right to do. But it should be a challenge. And I think if you're a competitor, like I said, you're walking into that game thinking, I've got something to prove. I'm going to show what I can do and set myself up for not only a good summer, but a good fall camp as well.
Thank you, Bart.
Thanks, Colin.
Hey, Coach. Good afternoon. You've talked a lot about different players throughout the spring. I feel like one guy that we haven't talked about much is Vertice Brown. As a guy who started every game last year for Illinois, I believe, on the offensive line, what have you kind of seen out of him this spring?
Vertice obviously did have some starting experience. We gave him a shot here with the first group for the first 3 or 4 practices. I felt like there were some other guys that added a little more physicality to the line. And so they rotated in more at that position. I did want to cross-train Vertice a little bit. So we played him at the left side. And so he got reps on that left guard spot. He has shown very intelligent player. He's shown some improvement in some of our combinations, and certainly has done some good things on the inside zone path. But we need to see a little more power out of him. He's a big, strong kid that has some starting experience, and those are strengths. We'd like to see him be able to come off the ball and play with power behind his pads and finish people and create a little more nasty there. So certainly am pleased with him in terms of how he's learned the offense. I'd like to see maybe a little more physicality, a little more power, from a player of his caliber there. But certainly been able to play both sides of the line. Not always an easy thing to do in spring transition and stuff like that, but certainly very much a part of the unit.
As someone who has never played offensive line, how do you get more physicality out of a player like Vertice?
Well, that's a great question, Alex. And I guess if I knew the exact science, I'd have 20 maulers right there. But I would say a couple of the big things is getting those guys to cut it loose, getting them to really play with confidence. Obviously, the technique is important, but it's a mentality that's developed, right? They have to be able to come off the ball and want to hurt people, want to be able to move people off the line of scrimmage, right? And transfer power from the floor through their hips into the block. And those are challenging things to do, right? It's not an easy position to play. And certainly more strength training, more development under our system, I think will help. Understanding that our techniques are different from what he's done the last 3 or 4 years here. And so certainly being able to cut that loose, being able to show he can do it and does have that ability. I'm not just talking about Vertice, any player, really insert any player into that comment there, but having the confidence to come off the football and play and bring the skill sets, the physical attributes he has into play there, into that block, right? That's a challenging thing. It's not just oozing off the football. It's not just, launching yourself. It's being able to get both feet in the ground, second step in the ground where all your power is, and being able to generate movement. And I think once you start playing with some confidence, you start playing with that mindset that you are the toughest guy on the field, the meanest guy on the field, right? You're going to start playing more physically and using the strength and the skill sets that you have.
Then I wanted to follow up a little bit, kind of bouncing off what Colin was asking with some of the freshmen. What have you seen out of a guy like Birdie Wisecover so far this spring? Just a freshman, still getting used to the college scene, I'm sure, and especially the physicality level that you're expecting.
Sure. Well, a lot of freshmen struggle when they come in. I mean, obviously, the game is a lot different from the high school level. The speed of the game is tremendously different. And if you think about it, like the lowest ranking player on our team was a star in high school. And so now he is coming into a situation where he's got some veteran guys to learn from and take advantage of that opportunity. We do have a pretty deep room in terms of our numbers. So reps are going to be limited in the limited time that we're allowed by the NCAA for our practice time and individual time throughout each practice. So having him just learn an offense that's way more complex than anything he's done before, having him be able to understand the techniques where it's not just the biggest guy on the field and you're coming off the line and hitting somebody. There is a technique to it. And then understanding really how that fits into the conceptual design of our offense, I think is a big challenge for him. So like most freshmen, he's going through a developmental phase right now and getting stronger and learning how to be a college football player. And that'll continue through the off season, and hopefully he can make something of that this fall.
Thanks, Coach. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Alex. You too.
Hey, Bart, I want to ask you about one of your more experienced players, but we just haven't seen him here, and that's Blake Gerasotti. What have you seen from him this spring? Obviously, smaller guy at guard, but obviously pretty successful at his previous stop.
Sure. Yeah, Blake has had a pretty good spring, pretty solid spring. He has really been kind of a stalwart on the left side, playing next to Vidarian. He certainly can. I like his versatility. He can play all three interior spots. We had moved him a little bit into center in giving Doug a blow from time to time, and rep Blake with not only the ones and the twos at center. So I like that part of it. I really think he's a very smart player. Obviously, we don't really talk about him in terms of being an experienced guy at Illinois, but he was certainly a longtime starter at Wofford. So he's a experienced collegiate player, and that's going to bode well for him too, right? He understands protections. He understands the soundness of a defense, what guys can and cannot do, right? And I think that helps him become a better player who is lacking in maybe traditional Big Ten size, right? And so I think he's aggressive. He plays hard. He does have some strength and power. He's continuing to develop and work his technique, which is only going to continue to improve. But I've been pleased with certainly his effort and physicality through spring, and what he can hopefully bring us really on 3 interior spots.
Yeah, and obviously there's a big competition for those interior spots, and two of the guys with experience that seem to be in the mix are Alex Pilstrom and Jordan Slaughter. What have you seen from those two guys too?
Well, they're both different players, and certainly been pleased with the competition. I'd like one of them to take it over, I very. Each one has strengths and weaknesses. I think Alex obviously has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder from last season and being moved positionally, and certainly has some very athletic abilities, being a former tight end and things coming in. But so I like that part of it. I do like how he comes off the football and gains ground. You guys hopefully will see some things like that on Monday night's game, and just understanding really how to execute a block. From an O-line perspective, knowing that when you turn your shoulders, you're going to open up a lane for the linebacker to run through and stuff like that. Little nuances of the position, I think, is where he can really grow. And but I've been pleased with the effort. His pass protection has improved dramatically. And Jordan really is such a powerful and strong guy. We're kind of repped him at multiple spots too. So it really kind of challenged him from that standpoint. But I think he fits really well at the guard spot. Certainly probably one of our more powerful players. And if we can, and Alec was talking about earlier about the physicality, if we can get him coming off the ball like he can consistently, you're going to have a really good Big Ten guard there. But so really that's kind of where we are. We're fighting still a competition, still a fight for those guard spots. But it's been good. I mean, there's certainly progress being made and improvements being made. And we'd like to see how Monday shapes out.
Thanks, Bart. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy.
Hey, Bart, I had a question for you, kind of I don't want to say off the wall, but when Moses got here, we always saw that he was a very large guy, but maybe thought it was going to take a little bit. What is it like, his development? How is that coming along? What are you seeing out of him?
Well, I tell you, I love Moses. I love Mo. He finishes people exactly how I want. Sometimes I got to pull the reins back a little bit so I don't get in trouble with practice myself. But Mo's what you want in a competitor. Mo's fierce competitor. Sometimes makes the defense kind of mad because he takes things a little far. But love his physicality, love his mentality. He goes out there every day wanting to demolish his opponent. He's a tremendously strong player from an upper body standpoint. We do need to work on some lower body things with him and some flexibility and some of those things, but certainly has done a pretty good job of adapting to our technique and our system. I still think he has some things to improve, like some of these players that have changed positions on just understanding the nuances of O-line play, right? Some defensive awareness and things like that. Knowing kind of when he's got to call tight ends with him and stuff of those kind of higher level things that a more veteran guy would really understand. So that's a big area where he can grow. But he's had a very nice spring, probably a little bit of a pleasant surprise in terms of how he's played, but love his physicality, needs to improve probably some flexibility and some of his movement and mobility things. And I think all the things he knows, he knows all this stuff. We're not hiding anything here from him, but he'll have a big off season and looking forward to hopefully being a contributor this fall, but I've been pleased with at least his style of play and his physicality through the spring.
And if I could zoom out a little bit, you've known Brett for a long time now. What are you seeing out of him and kind of the way that I'm going to say carrying himself, but just what this means to him to be back at the front of the room in a college program, running his own program. How is he the same or different from the guy that you knew, kind of way back when?
Well, from a similarity standpoint, from when I was with him at Wisconsin, he cares so deeply about our team, about players, about his coaches that work for him. I mean, that the whole family mantra is not a cliche, a recruiting piece. I mean, we grind here pretty well, but this staff is so close. The staff it works very well together, and there's a standard of excellence that's held with our program, not only with our pro players, but with our coaching staff, and it makes you want to be better every day. It really does. You don't want to let him down because of the faith he has in you as a coach, as a leader, and as a man. And I think those are things that he put a lot of thought into in assembling the staff, and it's certainly paying off. From my perspective. And so that has been very, very similar. There's some familiar faces from our time at Wisconsin, but everybody shares that same vision and shares those same goals and that work ethic that he has, and he instills in that in his staff every day. And I'm very, very proud to be a part of his staff because of that. And everybody's kind of grown. We were together 9 years ago, and I've grown as a coach, and so has he. I mean, he spent time with Coach Belichick in New England in the NFL, and you see some things there that certainly can carry over. I've got friends in those teams as well, and you see the carryover there, that we do things like they do in New England, or we did things that they did in New York, or learned along the way. I mean, we both have grown and learned from our successes and our failures, and it's very, very kind of special for me to be back with him. This was a dream opportunity for me when he called, and to be back with him and part of his staff. And I'm sure you could ask every coach that same question, and they would share that same sentiment with you on him. So really, really happy to be a part of that, and the structure that we have here as a staff is only going to make us better, and certainly make our program better, because there is such a high standard in Illinois.
Thanks, Bart. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
Anything else?
Good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Bart.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, you guys are good to go, Coach Griggs?
Hey, Terrance, I'll start us off here. What are you looking forward to seeing out of your group on Monday night?
Jeremy, what's going on? Looking forward to seeing our guys compete, execute the calls that we give the guys, and get out there and fly around and compete, playing fast and having fun.
What have you learned about your group as we're about 3/4 of the way here through spring ball?
A lot of versatility up front. Guys that are talented. They bring both power and speed to the front, and they have the capacity to take what we're installing and do a lot of different things than they may have been used to in the past, and just execute it on the field. So it's been good to see our guys in different positions execute what we're asking them to do. So a lot of versatility.
How important is versatility in what Ryan and Brett and you guys want to do defensively?
Yeah, with an attack mindset, you want to have guys that are sound in what we're asking them to do, but also aggressive to fit the calls and do it at full speed at a high level, with the proper fundamentals.
Thanks, Terrance. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Jeremy.
Coach, I wanted to zoom in on one player in particular. Calvin Avery is one who the previous staff always kind of seemed to mention as someone who kind of needed to get in shape a little bit better. In the videos that have been released, he looks like he's slimmed down a little bit. What have you seen from him this spring?
I love the way Calvin looks. He's a big guy, obviously, but he can move with that weight. I just mentioned about power and speed. He's a great example of that. A guy that can bring a lot of power at the point of attack, can move the line of scrimmage and really affect the play offensively. He can disrupt what the quarterback is trying to do. So we're excited about where Calvin is and where Coach Wright and Jade, our nutritionist, has him, the track that they have him on. He's doing everything we asked him to do, and he's in an upward trend. He's doing a great job for us.
And I kind of also wanted to hit on just some of the injured guys. How much of a help have they maybe been just in the meeting rooms and the logistical things with some of the younger guys that you're trying to bring along this spring?
Yeah, guys like Bryce Barnes, Rod Perry, Jamal Woods, guys that have significant amount of playing experience this past year. We kept them engaged in the meeting room, and they're vocal. We want to have an environment in the meeting room where everyone is involved, and so they're engaged. They're helping out the young guys during team periods in between reps, and just keeping them active as much as we can. And so it's always great to have those guys around and close to the action.
And then if I could get one quick one, I'm assuming on Monday you're going to try and rotate guys through as much as you can with the first kind of second string thing that Coach B lined out with us yesterday. When the fall gets here, how much importance is it with your defensive line group to be able to just rotate fresh bodies in and out of there with what you're trying to do defensively?
Yeah, we want to make sure we have our guys in position to have success. And so in any situation, every time they're on the field, we want them to play at a high level. So if we feel as though they can only play at a high level at a certain amount, like 3 or 4 plays, then we need to bring the next guy in, the next man in. And so it's always a next man mentality for us up front. So we're going to train that way as well, for guys to be ready to step in and step up.
Hey, Terrance, good to see you. We just talked with Bart about some position battles, and especially with you having a couple of starters sidelined right now, are there any 1 or 2 really strong position battles that have kind of played themselves out here, especially in the last couple of weeks as we head toward the spring game?
What's up, Colin? Yeah, so competition is always it resets every time we step on the field. So spring, it was just a fresh opportunity for guys to get out and compete. For sure, like we mentioned before, we got Rod and Jamal and Bryce with playing experience, and those guys with starting experience as well. But for the guys that are competing right now in the spring, they're competing for a starting role, and so it'll reset again in the fall. But Calvin Avery, Keith Randolph, Johnny Newton, Anthony Shipton, Deion Pate, guys are getting out there and they're working their tails off for us and trying to put themselves in position to execute the defense, know the defense, and so that they can matriculate into the fall and be in position to compete for a starting role.
And also the way that Brett Bielema kind of described it to us earlier this week was for the spring game, the ones against kind of the world as far as formatting goes. So what's your how do you, I guess, approach telling the world, the guys who aren't the ones, how to approach this game? I mean, what's your mindset that you relay on to them as far as the opportunity that this is for them?
So, for what we're trying to get done is we're trying to get another opportunity to get out there and practice. And so in the spring, each opportunity we hit that field is a practice. We want this for the fan base and that's coming to see us, and we're excited about that. We want to put out a great product out there for the fan base, and so they can be proud of. And the guys that are going to be out there competing, whether they're on one side or the other, they're going to be out there working on their fundamentals, working on their technique, trying to get better to stack days. And so that's what we're excited about. Whether they're on one side or the other side, it's going to be a great opportunity for them to get reps and get better.
Thanks, Terrance.
Thanks, Colin.
Hey, Terrance, I know Keith has been in college for a while, obviously, but before he got here, he was relatively new to football. I mean, he was a basketball player for a little bit. How is his growth? What are you seeing out of him? What kind of skills does he have that you're excited to work with?
What's up, Joey? Yeah, so Keith, when I talked about versatility, he's one of those guys that can help us on early downs, but also third down as well. We've been tracking our guys each practice from a production standpoint, production and counter production. And Keith is the most productive right now on the defense. So he's working hard to execute the defense, but at the same time, he's putting himself in position to make plays, and he's making those plays. So he's doing a really good job for us, Keith Randolph.
And when you got here, obviously, I mean, we've seen Calvin. I know you just talked about him, but a little inconsistent in terms of playing time. What were the initial conversations like? What kind of buy-in are you getting out of him? And I mean, just he was such a highly regarded kid coming out of high school. I mean, seems like he's got a pretty high ceiling.
Yeah, so Calvin wants to be great. He wants to be good. He wants to work on his. He wants to work on improving. Anytime he hits the field, and so he's willing and he's definitely able. So if you got the willing and able and the ability piece down, then really that's all you need. So he just wants to be coached, and he's responding well. He's doing a great job for us.
And if I could get one big picture one, you and Brett obviously go back a while. Well, what are you seeing out of him and what it means to him to be back in this seat as the head coach of a Division I football program, back in the Big Ten? I mean, how is he different or the same as maybe kind of your first time with each other?
Coach brings a lot of experience. I mean, he gathers information. He learns from his past. Having an opportunity to work in the New England Patriots organization and win a Super Bowl. You're going to grow from that, and so you're going to learn some things and apply it moving forward. And it's just been a great experience for me to be back with Coach Bielema as a leader of the program. And for example, in practice and throughout this spring, we've been helping our players understand football a lot more. And so we've been doing a lot of different segments of football one-on-one. And so for Coach to bring that to the table for our guys is going to help us play faster during the game and in different situations.
Thanks, Terrance. Really appreciate it.
No problem, Joe.